Quinn Mercer stood in the lobby of the Austin Institute for Advanced Medicine, trying not to sweat through her thrift store blazer. Everything around her screamed old money: the marble floors, the floating staircase, even the receptionist's Hermes scarf that probably had its own bank account. She was 99% sure she was breathing recycled billionaire air. Quinn definitely did not belong here, but desperation doesn't care about comfort zones. In her lap sat the world's heaviest folder, a clinical trial folder worth $500,000, $500,000, enough to get her little sister Lily into life-saving leukemia treatment. All Quinn had to do? Let a team of genius scientists use her body like a very fragile, very anxious science project. Then Lily texted, "Stop freaking out. And if there are hot doctors, take pics. I'm dying, not dead." Classic Lily, stage 4 cancer and still running the comedy department. "Miss Mercer?" Dr. Chen appeared. "Dr. Westbrook will see you now." Dr. Carter Westbrook, the brilliant, broody widower whose embryo she might be carrying. A broke woman, a grieving genius, and one wild clinical trial. What could possibly go wrong? Welcome back to Tales That Echo, the home of love stories that touch the heart and linger long after the last word. Because real love doesn't just follow the rules, it echoes, transforms, and rewrites them. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss what unfolds next in Quinn and Carter's journey. And to our returning family, thank you. May the good God bless and support you. Your presence, your support, and your hearts mean the world to us. Stay with us until the end, share your thoughts in the comments, and let's discover how a clinical trial becomes something neither of them ever expected. Quinn followed Dr. Chen down a hallway lined with photographs of smiling families, all holding babies. Perfect couples with perfect lives. She wondered how many of those babies had been created in laboratories, how many had been carried by women like her, women who needed money more than they needed dignity. Dr. Chen stopped at a heavy door, knocked twice, and pushed it open without waiting for an answer. "Dr. Westbrook, Miss Mercer is here." The office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Austin. The skyline glittered in the late afternoon sun, the Colorado River snaking through the city like a silver ribbon. But Quinn barely registered the view because the man standing by the window had just turned around, and every coherent thought evaporated from her brain. Carter Westbrook was tall, easily 6'2", with dark hair silvering at the temples and the kind of build that suggested he actually used the hospital gym instead of just paying for a membership. He wore charcoal scrubs that somehow looked tailored, a white coat hanging open, and an expression of exhausted determination that made him look older than his 42 years. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold. Gray. Storm cloud gray, the color of Austin's sky right before a summer downpour, and filled with a grief so profound that Quinn felt it like a physical blow. This man had loved someone completely and lost her. "Miss Mercer?" His voice was deep, rough around the edges, like he didn't use it for anything but medical terminology anymore. "Thank you for coming." "Quinn," she heard herself say, "you can call me Quinn." Something flickered in those gray eyes. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. Like he'd expected a transaction and found a person instead. "Quinn." He tested her name, and the way he said it, soft, careful, like it mattered, sent an unfamiliar heat through her chest. "Please, sit." She sat in one of the leather chairs near his desk, gripping her folder like a shield. Carter settled across from her, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence should have been awkward. Instead, it felt strangely intimate, like they were both taking a breath before diving into deep water. "I've reviewed your application," Carter said finally. "You're healthy, no genetic red flags. Your psychological evaluation was excellent. Dr. Chen says you understand the trial protocols, the enhanced monitoring, the experimental hormone therapy, The potential risks. I understand. Quinn's voice came out steadier than she felt. I need the money. You need a surrogate. It's a fair trade. Is it? Carter leaned back, studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Fair implies equal exchange. You're offering 9 months of your life, your body, your health. I'm offering money. That's not equal. That's desperation meeting opportunity. Quinn blinked. She'd expected a clinical discussion of medical procedures, not a philosophical debate about power dynamics. My sister has leukemia, she said bluntly, her voice cracking slightly. Stage 4. She needs an experimental treatment that costs $500,000. Insurance won't cover it. I've maxed out every credit card, borrowed from everyone who'll still take my calls, and I'm still $500,000 short. So yes, I'm desperate, but I'm also an adult making an informed choice. Don't patronize me by pretending this is exploitation. Carter's mouth curved. Not quite a smile, but close. You're right. I apologize. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was raw. My wife died suddenly. Aneurysm. She was a geneticist. Brilliant. She wanted children desperately, but we kept putting it off because we were building our careers. And then she was gone, and all I had left were 5 frozen embryos and a lifetime of regret. The rawness in his voice cracked something open in Quinn's chest. She watched as he blinked rapidly, fighting back tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. This trial, it's not just about the science. It's about giving her the child she never got to have. It's about making sure some part of her continues. His eyes locked on hers, and Quinn saw them glisten. But I need someone who understands this isn't just a paycheck. This baby will be loved, wanted, cherished. I need someone who'll care about her, even knowing you'll have to let her go. Quinn's vision blurred with tears. I watched my parents die in a car accident when I was 21, drunk driver. 1 second they were there, the next they were gone, and I became Lily's guardian overnight. I know what it's like to love someone so much that losing them would destroy you, and I know what it's like to fight for someone when everyone says there's no hope left. She met his gaze head on, tears streaming down both their faces now. Your daughter deserves to exist, and I promise you, Dr. Westbrook, I won't just carry her. I'll protect her like she's mine, because for 9 months, she will be. Carter stood abruptly, walked to the window, and stared out at Austin's skyline for what felt like forever. Quinn watched his reflection in the glass, the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand pressed against his chest like his heart physically hurt. She saw him wipe his eyes. When he finally turned around, his eyes were red-rimmed and wet. I'd like you to be our surrogate, he said, voice cracking, if you're willing. Quinn stood on shaking legs. I'm willing. There's one thing, Carter hesitated. The trial requires intensive monitoring, daily check-ins for the first trimester, twice weekly appointments. I know standard surrogacy arrangements maintain distance, but I need to be involved. I need to feel connected to this pregnancy, to my daughter. If that's not okay... It's okay, Quinn interrupted. Every logical bone in her body screamed this was dangerous, that you couldn't spend that much time with a man this broken and beautiful without catching feelings. But when she looked at him, really looked at him, she saw someone who'd been alone too long, someone who needed this baby to feel human again. How could she say no to that? Carter extended his hand. Thank you, Quinn. She took it. The moment their palms touched, electricity shot up her arm, hot and immediate and absolutely terrifying. His eyes widened. He'd felt it too. They both pulled back quickly, but the damage was done. Quinn walked out of that office knowing 3 things for certain. 1, she was going to save her sister's life. 2, she was going to carry Carter Westbrook's daughter. 3, she was absolutely, completely, irrevocably screwed, because the look in his eyes as she laughed told her he knew it too. But what Quinn didn't know was that the paperwork she was about to sign contained a clause that would change everything. And the daily injections Carter insisted on administering personally, they were about to blur every line she'd tried to draw. The paperwork took 3 days. Legal contracts, medical releases, consent forms that basically said if anything went wrong, Quinn couldn't sue. She signed everything without reading too closely, because what choice did she have? On Monday morning, she showed up at the Institute for her first round of pre-transfer testing. Blood work, ultrasounds, a pelvic exam that was about as fun as it sounded. Through it all, Carter was there, not performing the exams, but present, sitting in the corner during her ultrasound, reviewing her blood work results with the same intensity he probably gave surgical cases. "Everything looks perfect," Dr. Chen said after the 3rd day of testing. "We'll start your hormone protocol tomorrow, injections twice daily. Dr. Westbrook has requested permission to administer them personally, given his medical background. It's unorthodox, but within trial parameters if you consent." Quinn looked at Carter, who was studying a wall chart like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Why?" she asked him directly. He finally met her eyes, and she saw fear there, real, vulnerable fear. "Because I need to be part of this from the beginning. Because watching someone else inject you with hormones to carry my daughter feels wrong. Because—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "You can say no." Quinn thought about it. Thought about Carter showing up at her apartment twice a day. Thought about the intimacy of letting him into her space, her body, her life. Thought about the way her pulse jumped every time he looked at her. "Okay," she heard herself say, "you can do the injections." Something that looked like relief crossed his face. "Thank you." That's how Quinn ended up with a brilliant cardiac surgeon in her tiny South Austin apartment at 7 a.m. the next morning, both of them pretending this wasn't the weirdest situation either had ever been in. Her apartment was a studio above a taco shop. The whole place smelled like cilantro and grilled onions. She had exactly 4 pieces of furniture: a futon, a desk, a bookshelf overflowing with paperbacks, and a kitchen table she'd found on the street. Carter stood in the doorway, taking it all in, and Quinn waited for judgment, for the inevitable comparison to his life of marble floors and Italian suits. Instead, he said, "You have good taste in books." She followed his gaze to her bookshelves. Literary fiction, poetry, essay collections. Nothing she could afford to buy new. Everything came from used bookstores or library sales. "Reading's free," she said, more defensively than she meant to. "Well, cheaper than therapy." "I used to read." Carter set his medical bag on her table. "Before, now I just work." "Before your wife died?" "Yeah." He pulled out alcohol swabs, syringes, medication vials. His hands were steady, surgeon's hands. "Reading required a kind of stillness I couldn't access anymore. Silence meant thinking. Thinking meant remembering. Working meant surviving." Quinn understood that more than she wanted to. "I write," she offered, "freelance journalism. Think pieces nobody reads and listicles that pay the bills. 10 Austin coffee shops you haven't tried. How to survive SXW on a budget. Real Pulitzer-worthy stuff." Carter's mouth quirked. "You wanted to write something else." "It wasn't a question." "I wanted to write books," Quinn admitted. "Literary fiction. Stories about complicated people making impossible choices. But literary fiction doesn't pay for experimental leukemia treatments. So," she shrugged, "here we are." "Here we are," Carter echoed. He gestured to the futon. "You'll need to lie down. The injection goes in your hip. Lower abdomen also works, but hip is less painful." Quinn lay down, acutely aware of how small her apartment was, How close Carter would have to get. She pulled up her shirt just enough to expose her hip bone and tried not to think about the fact that a man who looked like a fallen angel was about to stick a needle in her. "This'll pinch," Carter warned. His hand was warm against her skin as he swabbed the injection site. "Deep breath in." She inhaled. The needle slid in quick and sharp, then the burn of medication. Quinn hissed. "Almost done." Carter's voice was gentle, professional, but his thumb brushed her hip bone just once, barely there, and Quinn's entire body went electric. He pulled the needle out, pressed gauze against the site, and stepped back quickly, too quickly. "Twice daily," he said, not meeting her eyes. "I'll be back at 7 tonight." "Carter, I'll see myself out." He laughed before she could say anything else. Quinn lay there listening to his footsteps fade down the stairs, her hip burning where he touched her, and wondered what the hell she'd gotten herself into. The twice daily visits became routine over the next 2 weeks, but routine didn't mean easy. And what Quinn's best friend Rosa was about to discover would force Quinn to confront the truth she'd been avoiding. Meanwhile, Carter was keeping a secret about the trial, one that could destroy everything before it even began. The twice-daily injections became routine over the next 2 weeks. Carter would show up at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., always professional, always careful not to touch her more than medically necessary. They'd make small talk, safe topics like Austin traffic and unseasonably hot weather. He'd administer the injection, he'd leave. It should have been clinical. It wasn't. Because Quinn started noticing things. The way Carter's hair fell across his forehead when he concentrated, the faint scar above his left eyebrow, how he always smelled like cedar and something antiseptic clean, the way his voice roughened when he said her name. And he was noticing her too. She caught him looking at her bookshelves between injections, his fingers trailing over spines like he was remembering what it felt like to read for pleasure. Caught him smiling when she made sarcastic comments about the hormone side effects. Caught him lingering in her doorway before leaving like he didn't quite want to go. On the 15th day, Quinn's best friend Rosa showed up unannounced and found Carter leaving. Rosa, a fierce labor and delivery nurse with zero filter, took one look at the tall, beautiful man walking out of Quinn's apartment at 7 p.m. and immediately dragged Quinn back inside. "Who the hell was that?" Rosa demanded. "And why does he look like he stepped out of a Grey's Anatomy fever dream?" "That's Dr. Westbrook," Quinn said. "The intended father. He's doing my injections." Rosa's eyes went wide. "The intended father? The man whose baby you're carrying? That man is coming to your apartment twice a day to give you shots?" "It's part of the trial protocol." "Quinn, honey, mi amor." Rosa gripped Quinn's shoulders. "That man looks at you like you're the answer to a question he's been asking for 3 years, and you look at him the same way. This is a disaster waiting to happen." "It's just a medical arrangement." "Bullshit." Rosa's voice gentled. "I've seen you with the guys you date. Trust fund hipsters who mansplain your own articles back to you. Guys you can't even bother to remember after 3 dates. You've never once looked at any of them the way you look at him." Quinn's chest tightened. She sank onto her futon, tears suddenly flooding her eyes. "It doesn't matter how I look at him. He's still in love with his dead wife. I'm carrying his baby for money. This is the definition of a situation with no good ending." "So you do have feelings for him?" "Rosa." Quinn's voice broke, and suddenly she was crying for real. Not pretty tears, but ugly, gasping sobs. "What happens when I have to hand over that baby in 9 months? What happens when I've spent every single day with a man I'm falling for, carrying his child, and then I just walk away like none of it mattered? Rosa pulled her into a fierce hug. I don't know, mi amor. I don't know. Quinn cried into her best friend's shoulder, terrified because for the first time since this whole thing started, she was admitting the truth out loud. She was falling for Carter Westbrook, and she had no idea how to stop. But Quinn's confession to Rosa was nothing compared to what was about to happen at the embryo transfer, because the moment that tiny embryo appeared on the ultrasound screen, everything would change. And the name Carter whispered to his unborn daughter, it would shatter every wall Quinn had left. The embryo transfer was scheduled for week 3. Quinn lay on the examination table with her feet in stirrups, Carter standing beside her, holding her hand like she was the one who needed comfort. His palm was sway. She'd never seen him nervous before. Dr. Chen worked with practiced efficiency, guiding a catheter through Quinn's cervix while Quinn tried not to think about how surreal this moment was. There, Dr. Chen said, pointing to the ultrasound screen. See that bright spot? That's the embryo. That's your daughter finding her home. Quinn stared at the tiny white dot on the black screen and felt the world tilt. That was Carter's baby, his late wife's genetic legacy, a little girl who would have her father's gray eyes and her mother's brilliance, and absolutely no idea how many people were already fighting for her to exist. Hi, sweet girl, Quinn whispered, tears sliding down her temples. Welcome home. Carter's hand tightened around hers. When she glanced up, tears were streaming down his face. She's really there, he said, voice breaking completely. Emma, she's really there. Emma, he'd already named her. Quinn felt something crack open in her chest, something she'd been trying desperately to keep locked down. She was crying now, too, both of them weeping in the examination room while Dr. Chen tactfully busied herself with cleanup. Now we wait 2 weeks for a pregnancy test, Dr. Chen said gently. In the meantime, Quinn, complete rest, no stress, no heavy lifting. Carter drove her home in silence. When they reached her apartment, he insisted on walking her up the stairs. At her door, Quinn turned to thank him and found him staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. I need to tell you something, Carter said quietly, and his voice was shaking. And I need you to know I'm not trying to blur boundaries or make this complicated, but I have to be honest. Quinn's heart hammered. Okay. These past 3 weeks, coming here twice a day, talking to you, watching you handle the hormone mood swings with humor and grace. He stopped, swallowed hard. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. You're the first person in 3 years who's made me feel something other than grief. And I know that's not fair to you. I know I'm supposed to keep this professional. But I needed you to know that you matter, not just as the woman carrying Emma, but as you. The air between them crackled. Quinn knew she should step back, should remind him about boundaries and complications and all the reasons this was impossible. Instead, she heard herself say, "You matter too." Carter's eyes darkened. He leaned in slowly, so slowly she could have stopped him, and pressed his forehead against hers. They stood like that for a long moment, not kissing, just breathing the same air, feeling the same pull. This is a terrible idea, Carter whispered. The worst, Quinn agreed, her voice barely audible. Neither of them moved away. Finally, Carter pulled back, and Quinn saw him wipe at his eyes. I should go. Yeah. But he paused at the top of the stairs. Quinn? Yeah? Thank you for all of it. He left before she could respond. Quinn went inside, locked the door, and slid down to the floor with her hand on her belly. "Your dad is going to be a problem," she told the maybe baby, tears still streaming down her face. "And I think I'm already in way too deep." The 2-week wait for the pregnancy test felt like an eternity. But what neither Quinn nor Carter knew was that those 14 days of text messages and growing intimacy were about to lead to the moment that would either make or break them. And when Dr. Chen walked into that office with the test results, one word would change everything. The 2-week wait was torture. Quinn tried to keep busy, writing articles, visiting Lily at the hospital, reorganizing her apartment for the 3rd time. But every spare second, her mind wandered to the maybe baby inside her and the man who'd created her. Carter texted every morning. "How are you feeling? Any symptoms?" At first, his messages were clinical. Then they started including random observations. "There's a breakfast taco truck outside the hospital. The owner's dog is named Pancake. I thought you should know this." Quinn found herself looking forward to his texts more than anything else in her day. On day 10, she texted back, "Update, I've eaten an entire jar of pickles and cried at a cat food commercial. Either I'm pregnant or having a mental breakdown." Carter's response came immediately. "Promising symptoms. Also, my dead wife used to cry at cat food commercials. I think it's a universal sign of good people." Quinn stared at that text for a long time. It was the first time he'd mentioned his wife without pain bleeding through every word. Like he was starting to remember her with fondness instead of just grief. She texted back, "Tell me about her." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, her name was Nadia. She was Russian. Brilliant, terrible driver. She collected vintage medical illustrations and made the worst coffee. She would have liked you. Quinn's throat tightened, tears blurring her vision. I wish I could have met her. Me too. On day 14, Quinn and Carter sat side by side in Dr. Chen's office, waiting for the blood test results that would determine everything. "I'm terrified," Quinn admitted, her voice shaking. "What if it didn't work? What if my body rejected the embryo?" Carter turned to face her fully, and she saw fear in his eyes, too. "Then we try again. Or we don't. But Quinn..." He caught her hand, his palm trembling against hers. "Whatever happens, you've already given me more than I had any right to hope for. You've given me a reason to wake up in the morning, to feel something other than survivor's guilt, to believe good things might still be possible." "Carter!" The door opened. Dr. Chen walked in with a smile that gave everything away. "Congratulations," she said. "You're pregnant." The world stopped. Quinn stared at Dr. Chen, at Carter, back at the doctor. "I'm what?" "Pregnant. The embryo implanted successfully. Your HCG levels are exactly where we want them. You're going to have a baby." Carter made a sound between a laugh and a sob and pulled Quinn into a hug so tight she couldn't breathe. His whole body shook as he cried against her shoulder. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair, his voice breaking. "Thank you. Thank you, thank you." Quinn hugged him back, her own tears soaking into his shirt, and felt every careful wall she'd built around her heart completely shatter. She was pregnant with Carter Westbrook's baby. And somewhere between the embryo transfer and this moment, she'd started falling for him too. God help her. If you're still with us, drop a comment right now. Are you crying? Stay tuned. And before we go any further, hit the like button, subscribe to Tales That Echo, because what's about to happen next will test Quinn and Carter like nothing before. Morning sickness is brutal, but what Carter does during Quinn's worst moment will prove exactly what kind of man he is. Stay with us. Morning sickness hit at week 6, and it was brutal. Quinn spent 3 days curled around her toilet, while Carter showed up at her apartment with ginger ale and saltines and barely concealed panic. "Should we call Dr. Chen?" he asked for the 20th time, hovering in her bathroom doorway. "This seems extreme." "It's normal," Quinn groaned, resting her forehead against the cool porcelain. "Apparently, your daughter hates me." "She doesn't hate you. She's just assertive." "She's trying to kill me from the inside." Carter knelt beside her, completely unbothered by the fact that she looked like death warmed over, and smoothed her hair back from her sweaty forehead. His touch was gentle, careful, devastating. "What can I do?" he asked softly, and Quinn heard the fear in his voice, the helplessness. "You can't. That's the problem with pregnancy. You just have to survive it." But Carter didn't leave. He sat on her bathroom floor for 3 hours, holding her hair when she got sick, bringing her water when she could keep it down, telling her stories about Austin's weird history to distract her from the misery. "Did you know the Congress Avenue Bridge has the largest urban bat colony in North America?" he said. 15 million bats. Every summer night they emerge at sunset. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen." Quinn smiled weakly. "Why do you know that?" "I like history. I like knowing the stories behind things." He paused. "Nadia used to say I collected facts like some people collect stamps. Said it was my way of making sense of chaos." There it was again. Nadia's name, spoken with tenderness that made Quinn's heart crack. "Did you sit on the bathroom floor with her?" Quinn asked before she could stop herself. "When she was sick?" Carter went very still. "No, she was never pregnant. We never got that far." "Oh." "Quinn." He tilted her chin up so she had to look at him, and she saw tears threatening in his eyes. "What's happening between us? This isn't me trying to recreate something I lost. This is new. You're not a replacement. You're—" He stopped, searching for words, his voice breaking. "You're the first person who's made me want to stop living in the past." Quinn couldn't breathe. "Carter, we can't." "I know. Trial protocols, professional boundaries. The fact that you're carrying my baby, and this is already the most complicated situation imaginable." His thumb brushed her cheekbone, and a tear escaped down his face. "But I needed you to know, in case I don't get another chance to say it." He stood up before she could respond, grabbing his keys, quickly wiping his eyes. "I'll pick you up for your appointment tomorrow. Get some rest." He was gone before Quinn could process what had just happened. What Quinn didn't know was that Carter was planning something that would either bring them closer together or destroy them completely. And it involved the most romantic spot in Austin, 15 million bats, and a confession that would change everything. But first, Quinn had to survive the next 4 weeks. And with morning sickness this brutal, that was far from guaranteed. By week 10, the morning sickness eased enough for Quinn to return to her freelance work. She was lying on her futon with her laptop, trying to write an article about Austin's best brunch spots, when Carter showed up unannounced. "I need to show you something," he said without preamble. "If you're feeling up to it." 20 minutes later, they were standing on the Congress Avenue Bridge at sunset, surrounded by tourists with cameras and locals who'd seen this 1,000 times but never got tired of it. "Watch," Carter said, pointing east. The sky was burnt orange and deep purple, the last light catching on downtown's glass buildings. And then, like something out of a fever dream, the bats came. A black cloud of 15 million creatures pouring out from under the bridge in a spiraling column that looked like smoke against the sunset. The sound was incredible, not loud, but everywhere. A rustling, living sound that made Quinn's skin prickle. "Oh my God," she whispered, tears immediately springing to her eyes at the sheer beauty of it. Carter stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "I brought Nadia here on our first date. She'd just moved to Austin from Boston. She thought I was crazy for being excited about bats." His voice was soft, remembering. But then she saw them, and she cried, said it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. Quinn's throat tightened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because she was wrong." Carter turned to look at her, and the expression in his eyes stopped Quinn's heart. Tears glistened on his lashes, catching the sunset light. "This isn't the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You are." The world narrowed to the two of them, the bats spiraling overhead, the sunset bleeding across the sky, Carter's hand finding hers in the growing dark. "Carter," Quinn breathed, her own tears falling freely now. "We shouldn't." "I know." But he didn't let go of her hand. His voice cracked as he continued. "Tell me to stop and I will. Tell me this is just the trial, just the baby, just proximity and hormones and convenience, and I'll walk away right now." Quinn knew she should say exactly that, should protect them both from the inevitable heartbreak. Instead, she said, "I can't stop thinking about you. I wake up hoping you'll text. I fall asleep replaying our conversations. Every time you leave, I count the hours until I see you again. And it terrifies me because in 6 months, I'm going to hand you Emma and walk away, and I don't know how I'm going to survive it." She was fully crying now, and so was he. Carter's hand tightened around hers. "So don't walk away." "What?" "Stay. After Emma's born, not as the surrogate, as—" He stopped, swallowed hard, tears streaming down his face. "I don't have the words yet, but I know I don't want to lose you. I know that when I imagine the future now, you're in it." The bats were thinning out now, the last stragglers disappearing into the twilight. Around them, tourists were packing up cameras and heading back to their hotels. But Quinn and Carter stood frozen, hands clasped, both crying openly, on the precipice of something that would change everything. "I'm falling for you," Quinn whispered, "and I'm terrified." "I'm falling for you too," Carter said, his voice breaking, "and I'm absolutely terrified." He leaned in slowly. Quinn's eyes fluttered closed. Their lips were an inch apart when a voice shattered the moment. "Carter? Carter Westbrook?" They sprang apart. A woman was standing 5 feet away. Mid-40s, expensive suit, expression of absolute shock. "Dr. Brennan," Carter said, his voice tight. He quickly wiped his face. "I didn't expect to see you here." Clearly. Dr. Brennan's eyes flicked to Quinn, to their joined hands, back to Carter. "I was hoping we could talk about the trial. There have been some concerns raised." Carter went very still. "What kind of concerns?" "Perhaps we should discuss this privately, at the hospital." Dr. Brennan's smile was sharp. "Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m.? It wasn't a request." "I'll be there," Carter said. Dr. Brennan walked away, heels clicking on the bridge. Carter turned back to Quinn, and the fear in his eyes made her stomach drop. "Who was that?" Quinn asked. "Dr. Victoria Brennan, Chief of Medical Ethics." Carter's jaw tightened. "And she's going to try to shut down the trial." Everything Quinn and Carter had built was about to be tested. The ethics board could destroy the trial, cost Quinn the $500,000 for Lily's treatment, and take away Carter's last chance to have Emma. But what neither of them knew was that Dr. Brennan's vendetta was personal, and the secret she was about to reveal would make Quinn question everything. The hospital ethics board meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Quinn wasn't invited. Participants aren't included in administrative reviews, but Carter showed up at her apartment the night before, looking like he'd aged 10 years. "They're claiming I'm exploiting you," he said without preamble, and Quinn saw his hands shaking. "Using my position as trial director to coerce you into a relationship. Dr. Brennan is arguing that the trial should be suspended pending investigation." Quinn's blood ran cold. Can she do that? She can try. The board will review the situation and decide if there's been any ethical breach. Carter ran his hands through his hair, and Quinn saw tears forming in his eyes. "If they shut down the trial, you lose the $500,000. Lily loses access to the experimental treatment, and his voice broke completely, "I lose Emma." "This is my fault," Quinn said, her own tears starting. "I should have kept my distance. I should have been more professional." "Stop." Carter crossed the room and gripped her shoulders. He was crying now, not even trying to hide it. "This is not your fault. This is Dr. Brennan weaponizing ethics guidelines to punish me." "Punish you for what?" Carter's jaw tightened. "We used to be engaged. Before Nadia. I ended it because I realized I wasn't in love with her. She's never forgiven me for it." The pieces clicked into place. She's doing this out of spite. She's doing this because she genuinely believes I'm taking advantage of you, and because she's never forgiven me for choosing someone else. He met Quinn's eyes, his face wet with tears. "The worst part is, she's not entirely wrong. You are vulnerable. You did agree to this trial because you're desperate, and I am in a position of power over you." "Carter." But what she doesn't understand is that this, he gestured between them, this isn't exploitation. This is two broken people who found each other and decided to try to be less broken together. Quinn's eyes burned. She was full on sobbing now. "What do we do?" "I go to the board meeting tomorrow and pray they see reason." Carter's voice was hollow. He pulled her into his arms, both of them crying. "And you prepare for the possibility that this all falls apart." That night, Quinn lay in bed with her hand on her belly, now slightly rounded at 12 weeks, and talked to Emma the way she did every night. "Your dad is fighting for you," she whispered through her tears. "He loves you so much already, and her voice cracked, "I love you too, which is terrifying because you're not mine to keep, but I can't help it." Her phone buzzed. A text from Carter. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this mess." Quinn typed back, "You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose this. I'd choose it again." "Why?" "Because I was falling for you from the moment we met. Because carrying your daughter feels like the most important thing I'll ever do. Because even if this all falls apart, I won't regret a single second." She stared at the message for a long time before deleting it and typing instead, "Because some things are worth fighting for." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." "Quinn?" "Yeah?" "If they shut down the trial, if we lose everything, I need you to know that the past 3 months have been the best of my life. You've given me something I thought I'd never have again. Hope." Quinn was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "We're not losing anything. We're going to fight." "Together?" "Together." The ethics board meeting would last 6 hours. 6 hours that felt like 6 years. And the vote would come down to a single person. But even if they won, Dr. Brennan wasn't done. She had conditions. Conditions that would force Quinn and Carter to prove their relationship was real. And what they'd discover in couples counseling would either save them or destroy them. The ethics board meeting lasted 6 hours. Quinn spent them pacing her apartment, checking her phone every 30 seconds, trying not to spiral into panic. Rosa came over around hour 4 and physically removed the phone from Quinn's hand. "You're going to give yourself a stress ulcer," Rosa said, "which is bad for the baby." They're deciding whether to destroy everything Carter's worked for. They're deciding whether a bunch of bureaucrats with God complexes can control how two adults feel about each other. Rosa squeezed Quinn's hand. "Mi amor, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. If the board shuts down the trial, if you lose the money, if Lily can't get the treatment, would you still want to be with Carter?" Quinn didn't hesitate. Yes. Even knowing she might die? The words were brutal, but Rosa's eyes were kind. Quinn sank onto her futon, the weight of everything crashing down. Tears started flowing before she could stop them. "I don't know how to do this," Quinn whispered, sobbing openly now. "I don't know how to carry his baby and love him and face the possibility that my sister might die anyway. I don't know how to be brave enough for all of this." Rosa sat beside her, pulling Quinn's head onto her shoulder. "Your mom used to say something, remember? Right after the accident, when you were 21 and terrified and suddenly responsible for a 16-year-old? Quinn closed her eyes, remembering. She said, "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's loving someone completely, even when you know you might lose them, because the love is worth the risk." "Exactly." Rosa kissed the top of Quinn's head. "And baby, you've been that brave your entire life. When your parents died, when Lily got sick, when you agreed to this insane trial, you've always chosen love over fear. What if I'm not strong enough this time? Then you let the people who love you help carry the weight. You let Carter fight with you instead of for you. You let Lily know how scared you are. You stop trying to be invincible and start being human." Quinn cried into Rosa's shoulder for a long time. And when her phone finally rang, Carter's name lighting up the screen, she took a deep breath and answered. "Hey," she said, voice rough from crying. The board voted. Carter's voice was tight with barely controlled emotion. 4-3. In our favor. The trial continues. Relief flooded through Quinn so intensely she felt dizzy. Fresh tears streamed down her face. Oh, thank God. "But there are conditions," he paused. "We're required to attend couples counseling weekly to ensure our relationship isn't coercive or harmful. And Dr. Brennan is being assigned as an additional oversight director for the trial. She'll be monitoring everything." So she lost, but she still gets to make our lives hell. "Pretty much." Carter let out a shaky breath. "Quinn, I need to see you. Can I come over?" "Yes, please." He arrived 20 minutes later, looking exhausted and triumphant and scared all at once. The second Quinn opened the door, he pulled her into his arms. "I was terrified," he said against her hair, and she felt his whole body trembling. "Not of losing the trial, of losing you." Quinn held him tighter, both of them crying again. "You're not losing me. You're stuck with me, remember?" He pulled back just enough to look at her. His gray eyes were red-rimmed, intense. The counselor's going to ask if our relationship is built on real feelings or just proximity and hormones and a baby we're both desperately invested in. What are you going to tell them? The truth. Carter cupped her face in his hands, tears streaming down his face. That I've been in love with you since you stood in my office and promised to protect my daughter like she was yours. That every day with you is a gift I don't deserve. That the thought of raising Emma without you makes me feel like I can't breathe. Quinn's tears spilled over. I'm in love with you too, even though it's complicated and messy and probably way too soon. Even though I'm terrified of everything that could go wrong. Can I kiss you? Carter asked, his voice breaking. For real this time. Not almost. Not interrupted. Yes. He kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. Soft at first, then deeper, his hands tangling in her hair while Quinn gripped his shirt and kissed him back with everything she'd been holding in for 3 months. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Carter rested his forehead against hers. We're going to make this work, he said. All of it, the trial, the relationship, Emma. I don't know how yet, but we'll figure it out. Together, Quinn said. Together. The couple's counseling would force them to confront the hardest questions. Was their love real or just circumstantial? Could they separate their feelings from the baby they were creating? And when Dr. Hayes asked the one question neither of them wanted to answer, everything would hang in the balance. But first, they had to get through the next appointment, and what happened at 20 weeks would test them in ways they never expected. If you're still with us at this point, you know this story is something special. Drop a comment and tell me, are you Team Carter and Quinn? Should they have fought for this relationship, or should they have kept it professional? Let us know your thoughts. The next few months were a delicate balance of medical appointments, couples counseling sessions, and Dr. Brennan watching them like a hawk, waiting for them to slip up. The counseling sessions were intense. Their therapist, a warm woman named Dr. Patricia Hayes, didn't pull punches. Let's address the elephant in the room, Dr. Hayes said in their third session. Quinn, you're carrying Carter's baby. You're financially dependent on him for your sister's treatment. Those are significant power imbalances. How do you know your feelings aren't influenced by gratitude or fear? Quinn had been ready for this question. Before I met Carter, I went on dates with guys who had money. Guys who could have helped with Lily's bills if I'd just been... She stopped, choosing her words carefully. If I'd been willing to compromise myself. I said no every time, so I know what it feels like to be tempted by someone's resources. And I know what it feels like when you genuinely care about the person, not what they can give you. And Carter, Dr. Hayes turned to him, your late wife has been gone for 3 years. Some might argue you're projecting your grief onto Quinn, using her as a way to feel connected to the child you're creating. Carter's jaw tightened. Quinn saw him blink rapidly, fighting tears. I loved Nadia completely. Her death nearly destroyed me. And for 3 years, I've been stuck in that grief, unable to move forward. He looked at Quinn, tears finally spilling over. But Quinn didn't let me stay stuck. She challenged me, made me laugh, reminded me that life is still happening even when you're drowning in the past. She's not a replacement for Nadia. She's the reason I can finally honor Nadia's memory without being paralyzed by it. Quinn reached for his hand, her own tears falling. Dr. Hayes studied them both. I'm going to be honest. This situation is complicated, but I've worked with hundreds of couples, and what I see here is genuine. Messy, yes. Unconventional, absolutely, but real. She paused. The question isn't whether your feelings are valid. It's whether you're both prepared for how hard this is going to be. Quinn, you'll have to give birth and then navigate your role in Emma's life. Carter, you'll have to balance being a father with being a partner. neither of those things will be simple. Nothing about us has been simple from day one, Quinn said, wiping her eyes. Why start now? Carter reached for her hand. We're not looking for simple. We're looking for worth it. Dr. Hayes smiled. Then my professional opinion is that you two have as good a shot as anyone, maybe better, because you've already proven you can fight for what matters. At 20 weeks, they found out the baby was healthy and growing perfectly. Carter insisted on taking Quinn to dinner to celebrate, a real date, not just time stolen between appointments. He brought her to a tiny Italian restaurant in East Austin, the kind of place with mismatched chairs and red checkered tablecloths and food that tasted like someone's grandmother made it. This doesn't seem like your usual scene, Quinn teased, looking around at the decidedly non-fancy atmosphere. Nadia and I used to come here, Carter admitted, when we were broke medical students, before we could afford places with actual wine lists. He met Quinn's eyes. I haven't been back since she died. Couldn't face it. But tonight I wanted to, show you that part of my life, the part that wasn't just grief. Quinn's throat tightened. Thank you for trusting me with that. Over pasta that was genuinely incredible, Carter told her stories about his life before, about growing up in Houston, the son of a single mom who worked 3 jobs to put him through college, about medical school and residency and the grueling years of surgical training, about meeting Nadia at a genetics conference and falling in love over terrible hotel coffee. She was so brilliant, it was intimidating, Carter said, smiling at the memory. She'd explain genetic sequencing like it was poetry, made me want to be smarter just to keep up. Do you think she'd approve? Quinn asked quietly. Of us? Carter considered this seriously. Nadia was pragmatic. She believed in moving forward, not staying stuck. The night before she died, we'd gotten in a fight because I wanted to wait another year before trying IVF. I wanted to make sure we were really ready. And she said, his voice caught, tears forming. She said, life doesn't wait for you to be ready. You just have to jump and build your wings on the way down. Quinn reached across the table and took his hand. She sounds incredible. She was. Carter's thumb brushed over Quinn's knuckles, and she saw a tear escape down his cheek. And she would have told me I was an idiot if I let you go, because I was too scared to risk my heart again. They finished dinner and walked along the Colorado River Trail as the sun set, painting the Austin skyline in shades of gold and pink. Carter's hand was warm around hers, and Quinn felt something settle in her chest, a rightness she hadn't felt in years. I have something for you, Carter said suddenly. He pulled a small box from his jacket pocket. Quinn's heart stopped. Carter. It's not what you think. Not yet. He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant, 2 interlinked circles. What the necklace represented would become clear in just a moment. But what Carter didn't know was that in exactly 2 weeks, Quinn would get a phone call that would force him to prove those words meant everything, because Lily's condition was about to take a turn that would test every promise they'd made. 1 circle is Emma, 1 is us, Carter said softly, because you're not just carrying my daughter, you're part of this family now, both of you. Quinn's vision blurred with tears. It's beautiful. He fastened it around her neck, his fingers lingering at her nape. I know we're doing everything backward. Baby first, relationship second, probably marriage somewhere down the line if we don't screw this up. But Quinn, he turned her to face him, serious and vulnerable in the fading light. I need you to know I'm all in, completely. Whatever happens, however complicated this gets, I'm choosing you every day. I'm choosing you too, Quinn whispered through her tears. He kissed her as the sun disappeared behind the hills, and Quinn let herself believe this could actually work. But the universe, as always, had other plans. 2 weeks later, Quinn got the call that changed everything. "Quinn?" Lily's voice was thin, scared, barely above a whisper. "I'm at the ER. Something's wrong." Quinn's blood turned to ice. "I'm on my way." She called Carter from her Uber, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. He met her at the hospital, still in his scrubs from surgery, and held her hand while they waited for Lily's oncologist to give them news. When Dr. Martinez finally emerged from Lily's room, her expression made Quinn's stomach drop. "The leukemia is progressing faster than we anticipated," Dr. Martinez said gently. "The standard chemotherapy isn't working. She needs the experimental Johns Hopkins treatment immediately, not in 2 months, now." "But the trial money doesn't come through until Emma's born," Quinn said, panic rising in her throat. Tears were already streaming down her face. "That's 3 more months." "I know. I'm sorry." Dr. Martinez's eyes were kind but firm. "Without that treatment, Lily has maybe 6 weeks, 8 if we're very lucky." The world tilted. Carter's arm came around Quinn's waist, holding her upright as she began to sob. "How much?" Carter asked, his voice tight. "For the treatment?" $500,000, plus travel and accommodation costs while she's in Baltimore, closer to $600,000 total. Quinn couldn't breathe. 6 weeks. Her baby sister had 6 weeks. "I'll pay for it," Carter said immediately. Quinn's head snapped up. "What?" "I'll cover the treatment. All of it. Wire transfer tomorrow." "Carter, that's not... You can't just..." She was crying so hard she could barely speak. He turned to face her fully, and she saw tears streaming down his face too. "Yes, I can, and I will, because Lily is your sister and you love her, which means I'm going to do everything in my power to keep her alive." "I can't let you do that," Quinn said, her voice breaking. "That wasn't part of our agreement. I'm supposed to earn that money by carrying Emma." "Screw the agreement." Carter's voice was fierce, but his face was wet with tears. "I love you. That means when someone you love is dying, I help. No conditions, no contracts, no transactions." Dr. Martinez quietly excused herself, giving them privacy. Quinn stared at Carter through her tears. "You love me," she repeated. "Of course, I love you. I've been in love with you for months." He cupped her face in his hands, both of them crying openly now. "And I need you to let me do this, not because you owe me anything, not because of Emma, because this is what people do when they love each other. They show up when everything is falling apart." Quinn collapsed into his arms and sobbed. For Lily, for the terror of almost losing her, for this man who just offered to save her sister's life without hesitation. "Thank you," she choked out. "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me," Carter said against her hair, his own voice breaking. "You just have to let me love you. Can you do that?" Quinn pulled back, looking at this brilliant, broken, beautiful man who'd somehow become her entire world. "Yes," she whispered, "I can do that." Lily's treatment at Johns Hopkins would be brutal. 6 weeks of hell. But what Quinn didn't know was that watching her sister fight for her life would force her to confront her own deepest fear. What if loving people completely meant losing them anyway? And the promise Lily would make Quinn extract from her would haunt everything that came after. Lily was admitted to Johns Hopkins 3 days later. Carter arranged everything, the medical transport, the accommodations, even got her into a trial that had supposedly closed enrollment months ago. Turned out that having a world-renowned cardiac surgeon make phone calls on your behalf opened doors. Quinn stayed in Baltimore for 2 weeks while Lily started treatment. Carter flew out every weekend, bringing Thai food from Lily's favorite Austin restaurant and sitting with them through the long hours of infusions and monitoring. "Your boyfriend is kinda perfect," Lily told Quinn one night while Carter was down in the cafeteria getting coffee. She looked so thin, so fragile in the hospital bed. Like, annoyingly perfect. Does he have any flaws? "He snores," Quinn offered, "and he's incapable of loading a dishwasher correctly." "Those are garbage flaws. I was hoping for something better." Lily's smile faded. Her eyes filled with tears. "Quinn, I need to tell you something." Quinn's stomach clenched. "What?" "I was so angry when you told me about the surrogacy. I thought you were selling yourself, giving up your body and your dignity just to save me." Lily's voice cracked. "But watching you with Carter, the way he looks at you, the way you light up when he texts, I get it now. You didn't just find a way to save my life. You found someone who makes you happy, and that matters too." "You matter more," Quinn said fiercely, tears streaming down her face. "We both matter." Lily grabbed Quinn's hand, holding tight. "Promise me something. If this treatment doesn't work, if I don't make it, promise me you won't let guilt destroy what you have with Carter. Promise me you'll let yourself be happy." "Lily!" "Promise me, Quinn." "I promise," Quinn whispered, crying harder. But privately, she didn't know if she could keep that promise, because if Lily died, how could Quinn look at Carter, at Emma, and not feel like she'd traded one life for another? The treatment worked. Not quickly, not easily, but slowly, over 6 brutal weeks of chemotherapy and immunotherapy and medications with side effects that made Lily look like a ghost of herself, the cancer started to retreat. "Remission," Dr. Martinez said, and Quinn collapsed in the hospital hallway and cried so hard she made herself sick. Carter found her there, curled up against the wall, and slid down beside her. He didn't say anything, just pulled her into his arms and let her fall apart. "She's going to live," Quinn sobbed into his shoulder. "She's going to live." "She's going to live," Carter agreed, his own voice rough with emotion. She felt his tears in her hair. They sat there for a long time, holding each other in the fluorescent-lit hallway while hospital staff stepped carefully around them. Finally, Carter said, "Quinn, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." She pulled back to look at him. His eyes were red, vulnerable. "Okay, now that Lily's in remission, now that the immediate crisis is over, do you still want this? Us? Emma?" His gray eyes were vulnerable, scared, and filling with fresh tears. "Or were you only staying because you needed the money?" Quinn stared at him. "Are you serious?" "I'm terrified," Carter admitted, his voice shaking. "I'm terrified that once Emma's born, once you fulfill the surrogacy contract, you're going to walk away. That this whole thing has just been about saving your sister, and now that she's saved..." Quinn kissed him, hard and desperate and furious. "You idiot," she said against his lips, tears streaming down her face. "I fell in love with you before I knew if Lily would live or die. I chose you, not your money, not the trial, you." "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Quinn took his face in her hands, both of them crying. "Carter Westbrook, I love you. I love your broken pieces and your terrible dishwasher loading skills and the way you cry at cat food commercials. I love that you saved my sister without hesitation. I love that you're giving Emma life because you can't let go of Nadia. And I love that you're learning to make room for new love without forgetting the old. I love all of it, all of you." Carter's eyes were red, tears streaming. "Marry me." Quinn laughed through her tears. "What?" "I know it's crazy. I know we're already doing everything backward. But marry me, Quinn. Not because of Emma, not because of the trial, because I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you every single day." "We're in a hospital hallway," Quinn pointed out, still crying and laughing. "I'm 28 weeks pregnant with your baby. My sister is in remission upstairs. This is possibly the least romantic proposal in history." "Is that a no?" "That's a yes, you ridiculous man." Quinn kissed him again. "Yes, I'll marry you." Carter pulled a ring box from his pocket because apparently he'd been carrying it around waiting for the right moment, and slipped a simple diamond band onto her finger. "I love you," he said. "I love you too." They sat in that hospital hallway, newly engaged, holding each other while the world continued around them. And for the first time in months, Quinn let herself believe everything might actually be okay. The engagement should have been the happy ending, but they still had 10 weeks until Emma's birth. 10 weeks of waiting, wondering, and preparing for the moment that would either bring them closer together or tear them apart. Because giving birth to a baby you've carried for 9 months, even when you know she belongs to someone else, changes everything. And what happened during those 23 hours of labor would test every promise they'd made. Drop a comment right now if you're crying. Are you Team Quinn and Carter? Did you see this coming? Let us know where you're watching from and share this with someone who believes in second chances. Emma Rose Westbrook made her entrance into the world at 38 weeks during another one of Austin's dramatic thunderstorms. Quinn's water broke during dinner. Carter had made pasta, badly, insisting she needed carbs, and they barely made it to the hospital before contractions started coming hard and fast. Labor was intense. 23 hours of pain and exhaustion, and Quinn screaming at Carter that she was never doing this again. "You're doing amazing," he kept saying, holding her hand even though she was definitely breaking his fingers. His eyes were red from crying with her through each contraction. "I'm dying," Quinn panted. "This is how I die." "You're not dying. You're bringing our daughter into the world." "Your daughter." Carter's jaw tightened. Tears streamed down his face. "Our daughter. Quinn, I need you to hear this. Emma is ours. Not just mine, not just biologically. Ours. You're her mother in every way that matters." Quinn didn't have the energy to argue. At 4:47 a.m., while rain hammered the hospital windows and lightning split the sky, she pushed one final time and felt Emma slip into the world. The crying started immediately. Loud, angry, absolutely perfect. "She's here," the doctor said, placing a tiny vernix-covered baby on Quinn's chest. "Congratulations, Mom and Dad. You have a healthy baby girl." Quinn looked down at Emma's dark hair, gray eyes just like Carter's, tiny fists waving indignantly, and fell in love so completely that everything else disappeared. Tears poured down her face. "Hi, sweet girl," she whispered. "Hi, baby. We've been waiting for you." Carter stood beside the bed, tears streaming down his face, looking at his daughter like she'd hung the stars. He was openly sobbing, making no attempt to hide it. "She's perfect," he breathed. "Quinn, she's absolutely perfect." "Do you want to hold her?" Carter nodded, unable to speak. Quinn carefully transferred Emma into his arms, and watching him hold their daughter for the first time broke something open in Quinn's chest that she didn't know existed. "Hi, Emma Rose," Carter said, voice cracking, tears falling onto the baby's blanket. "I'm your dad, and I love you so much already. Your mama, your first mama, Nadia, she would have loved you too. She wanted you so badly. She fought so hard for you. And your other mama," he looked at Quinn with so much love she could barely stand it. "Your other mama carried you and protected you and loved you from the very beginning. You're the luckiest girl in the world because you get to be loved by 3 women." Quinn sobbed openly now. Rosa, who'd been in the delivery room taking pictures, was crying too. The hospital room filled up quickly after that. Lily, still thin but glowing with health, arrived bearing balloons and tears. Dr. Chen and Dr. Hayes came by to congratulate them. Even Dr. Brennan showed up, her expression softer than Quinn had ever seen it. "I owe you both an apology," Victoria said quietly, her own eyes glistening. "I thought I was protecting Quinn, but I was really just punishing Carter for a hurt that had nothing to do with either of you." She looked at Emma sleeping in Carter's arms. "You've built something beautiful here. I'm sorry I tried to tear it down." "Thank you," Quinn said, meaning it. "For what it's worth," Victoria added, "I've never seen Carter this happy, not even before." She smiled. "Congratulations." They brought Emma home 3 days later to the house Carter had been renovating for months, taking down old memories and building new ones. Nadia's photos were still on the mantle, but now they shared space with ultrasound pictures and photos of Quinn. The nursery was painted soft yellow with white furniture and a mobile of Texas wildflowers hanging above the crib. "This is your home," Quinn told Emma as Carter carefully placed her in the crib for the first time. Tears slipped down Quinn's cheeks. "This is where you'll grow up, where you'll learn about your mama Nadia's brilliant mind and your mama Quinn's fierce heart, where your dad will teach you to be brave and kind and absolutely yourself." Emma yawned, completely unimpressed, and Carter laughed through his tears. "She's got your attitude," he told Quinn. "She's got your stubbornness," Quinn countered. That night, after the first round of feeding and diaper changing and trying to figure out how anyone survived parenthood, Quinn and Carter collapsed into bed. Emma slept in a bassinet beside them, both parents too paranoid to put her in the nursery yet. "I can't believe this is real," Carter said, staring at the ceiling, tears still evident in his voice. "6 months ago, I was alone in this house, thinking I'd never be happy again. And now I have Emma and you and a family I didn't think I deserved." Quinn rolled onto her side to face him. "You deserve all of it." "So do you." Carter pulled her close. "You saved my life, you know. Not just Emma, me. You gave me a reason to stop surviving and start living." "You saved mine too," Quinn whispered. "You saved Lily. You gave me hope when I'd run out. You showed me what it means to love someone completely." They lay there in the dark, listening to Emma's tiny snuffling sounds, both of them too wired to sleep. "Quinn?" "Yeah?" "Let's get married this weekend." What Carter was proposing was insane. They had a 3-day-old baby. Quinn's body was still recovering from 23 hours of labor. But sometimes the craziest decisions are the rightest ones. And what happened at their wedding in Zilker Botanical Garden would prove that love doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to be real. Quinn laughed through her happy tears. "This weekend? Carter, we have a 3-day-old baby." "Exactly. We're already not sleeping. We're already covered in various baby fluids. We're already a family. Why wait?" "Because normal people plan weddings for months?" "We've never been normal." Carter propped himself up on one elbow, suddenly serious, tears glistening in his eyes. "I don't want to wait. I don't want to spend another day not being your husband, not after everything we've been through." Quinn looked at this brilliant, stubborn, beautiful man who'd somehow become her entire world. "Okay," she said, "let's get married this weekend." They got married 4 days later in Austin's Zilker Botanical Garden, surrounded by blooming wildflowers and the people who'd fought for them. Lily was there, healthy, glowing, crying through the entire ceremony. Rosa served as maid of honor. Dr. Chin and Dr. Hayes came. Even Victoria showed up with an apologetic smile. Quinn wore a simple white dress that accommodated her post-pregnancy body. Carter wore the same gray suit he'd worn the day they met. Emma slept through the entire ceremony in Rosa's arms, perfectly content. "I promise to honor the woman who came before me," Quinn said in her vows, looking at Nadia's photo on the altar, tears streaming down her face. "To tell Emma about her mother's courage and brilliance, to make sure that love is never forgotten." She turned to Carter, who was already crying. "And I promise to love you with everything I have, to choose you every single day, to build a life with you that's messy and complicated and absolutely worth fighting for." Carter's vows were simple, his voice breaking. "I promise to show up every day in every way that matters, to love you and Emma with everything I am, to never take a single moment for granted." They kissed while Emma woke up and started crying, and everyone laughed through their tears, and it was perfect. Most love stories end with a wedding, but Quinn and Carter's story was just beginning, because 2 years later, their life would look completely different, fuller, messier, more beautiful than either of them could have imagined. And the family they'd built from desperation and hope and impossible love would prove that sometimes the best things in life come from the worst circumstances. Quinn pushed Emma on the swing set in their backyard, while Carter chased their 6-month-old son, Marcus. Yes, they decided Emma needed a sibling, across the grass. The little boy had Carter's gray eyes and Quinn's determination and absolutely zero fear. "Higher, Mama," Emma demanded. "Push me higher." "Any higher and you'll fly away." "I want to fly." "Your mama would have a heart attack," Carter said, scooping up Marcus before he could eat a handful of dirt. "We need you here." Emma giggled, and Quinn felt her heart swell so large it hurt. This was her life now. Chaotic and exhausting and full of love. Her debut novel, a story about a woman who learns to love again after loss, had just sold to a major publisher. Lily was in her 3rd year of remission and thriving in college. And every single day, Quinn woke up beside a man who chose her, who fought for her, who built a family with her that was messy and beautiful and real. "Mama, watch this," Emma called out, pumping her legs to make the swing go higher. "I'm watching, baby." Carter came to stand beside her. Marcus balanced on his hip and wrapped his free arm around her waist. "Happy?" he asked. Deliriously. Even with the chaos and the sleepless nights and the fact that Marcus just tried to eat a rock? Especially because of all that. Quinn turned to kiss him. "This is everything I never knew I wanted." "Me too." They gathered for a family hug, Carter, Quinn, Emma, and Marcus, while the Austin sun set over their backyard, painting everything gold. Quinn thought about the scared woman who'd walked into a fertility clinic 18 months ago, convinced she was nobody special. That woman had been wrong. She wasn't nobody. She was a mother, a wife, a woman who'd learned that love doesn't follow rules or logic or contracts. Love just happens, and when it does, the bravest thing you can do is hold on tight and fight for it with everything you have. "I love you," Quinn whispered to her family. "We love you too," they chorused back. And in that moment, surrounded by the people who made her whole, Quinn Westbrook knew she'd made exactly the right choice. She'd agreed to carry a stranger's baby. She'd ended up carrying his heart too. And her own heart had grown large enough to hold all of them, the living and the dead, the past and the future, the grief and the joy. That was the thing about love. It didn't replace anything. It just made room for more. Always more. Thank you for staying with Quinn and Carter through this beautiful, emotional journey. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Drop a comment telling us what your favorite moment was. And remember, love doesn't have to be simple to be real. Sometimes the most complicated love stories are the ones worth fighting for. Until next time, keep believing in love that transforms everything it touches. This is Tales That Echo, and we'll see you in the next story.